The first thing Michael Sterling registered was the cold. It was the sharp, unsettling cold of an empty space next to him, a space that should have been warm and occupied. That he opened his eyes to the soft, diffused morning light filtering through the linen curtains of their penthouse master bedroom. The digital clock on the bedside table glowed 6:45 a.m. Too early for him, but usually just the time Emily would be returning from her sunrise yoga or preparing his custom blended coffee in the kitchen. "Emily," he called out, his voice thick with sleep, silence. Not the usual morning silence, punctuated by the clinking of porcelain or the distant hum of city traffic, but a dead silence. Michael sat up, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. The king-sized bed, a monument to their 7 years of marriage, felt massive and lonely. Emily's side was perfectly smooth, the expensive Egyptian cotton sheet meticulously pulled back. Too meticulously. Emily was many things, elegant, sharp, mesmerizing, but she was not a tidy sleeper. She always left a beautiful, chaotic tangle behind that a faint sense of unease settled in his stomach. He threw on a silk robe and walked through the sprawling apartment. The kitchen was pristine, untouched. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a spectacular view of the Manhattan skyline, but Michael barely saw it. "Emily, where are you?" he murmured, his voice now laced with genuine concern. That he checked her usual spots. The small, sunlit studio where she painted, the library where she read, and finally, the walk-in closet. Her side was largely full, designer dresses, furs, and countless shoes were all present. But her two favorite travel bags, the small leather weekend bag and the larger, nondescript canvas duffel she used for charity trips, were missing. Michael's heart began to hammer against his ribs. This wasn't a spontaneous trip. Emily always told him, always left a note. That he returned to the bedroom and went straight to her vanity table, a custom-made piece of mahogany where she performed her daily rituals. That's where he saw it, perched precisely in the center of the polished wood, where her diamond engagement ring usually rested, was a small, cream-colored envelope. It wasn't sealed. It simply bore his name, Michael, written in Emily's elegant, looping script. His hands trembled as he picked it up. It felt impossibly light, yet heavy with unspoken words. He pulled out the single folded sheet of paper. The note was short. Devastatingly short. "My dearest Michael, if you are reading this, I am already long gone. Please know, with every fiber of my being, that leaving you is the hardest thing I have ever had to do. You gave me a life, and a love, that I never deserved, but which I clung to like a lifeline. That I have to tell you the truth now, even though the words feel like ashes in my mouth. My name is not Emily. My life with you, the charity galas, the gallery openings, the quiet weekends in the Hamptons, was a lie. A necessary, beautiful, suffocating lie. For 7 years, I have been running. Running from who I was, and from a group of people who would stop at nothing to reclaim their property. They found me, Michael. And I can't let them hurt you. You are too good, too pure for the darkness that is now closing in. Forget me. Go to the police, tell them I left. Tell them it was a sudden decision, a breakdown. Say anything but the truth. Burn this letter after you read it. There is one thing, however, I cannot erase. The lily is not a flower, the sun rises in the west for the sleeper. I love you. Never doubt that. Michael read the words 3 times. The blood drained from his face, leaving him cold and numb. My name is not Emily. A necessary, beautiful, suffocating lie. He was a man who built his empire on facts, figures, and infallible logic. His world had just been shattered by a few lines of script and a profound, terrifying revelation. The woman he loved, the woman who shared his bed and his life, was a phantom. He looked at the final, cryptic sentence, the sentence she had clearly left as a key. The lily is not a flower, the sun rises in the west for the sleeper. Forget her. Tell the police she had a breakdown. Michael crushed the letter in his fist, his logical mind immediately rejecting the command. The lie had ended, the hunt had just begun. He was going to find out who Emily really was, who she was running from, and what the hell the lily meant. He had 72 hours before the police would move from a missing person case to a fugitive file, and he knew, instinctively, that the police would only hinder him. This was his secret, his lie to untangle. Chapter 1 word count, approximately 700 words. What do you think of the beginning? Would you like Michael to A. immediately contact his most trusted private security/investigation contact, Jameson, B. begin his own frantic search of the penthouse for any other hidden clues before involving anyone else, C. focus on researching the cryptic final sentence, the lily is not a flower? Michael chose the path of immediate, frantic action. He couldn't just sit and stare at the cryptic note. He needed to ensure Emily hadn't left behind some obvious, desperate clue he'd missed. That he crumpled the letter, then, remembering Emily's command, burn this letter, he smoothed it out and carefully placed it in his locked safe, next to the portfolio of his most sensitive business documents. He wouldn't burn it, it was the only tangible link he had. The penthouse was a monument to wealth and sophistication, but now, it felt like an echoing mausoleum. He systematically began his search, focusing on places where Emily kept secrets, or where a life built on a lie might have fractured. The hidden spaces first, the vanity table. He emptied the ornate silver drawers, sifting through expensive cosmetics, silk scarves, and delicate jewelry. Nothing. He checked the underside of the table, the back of the large mirror, nothing but dust. Next, the library. Emily had a small, private collection of books separate from the main shelf, mostly obscure history and poetry. Michael ran his fingers along the spines, feeling for any loose panel or compartment. He paused at a worn copy of T.S. Eliot's Four Quartets, a book she often quoted. He flipped through it quickly, then noticed something odd on the page 4, East Coker. Near the bottom margin, barely visible, were three small, penciled-in letters, C.A.M. C.A.M. Michael whispered. It was too precise to be an idle doodle. A location? An initialism? A code? He carefully tore the page out, a sacrilege to a book, but necessary, and slipped it into his robe pocket. The office and the computer. Michael moved swiftly to Emily's small home office. Her sleek, minimalist desk contained her laptop and a single, locked drawer containing her financial records and legal documents, all under the name Emily Sterling. That he powered on her laptop, which required a password she had always kept secret, claiming, a woman needs her secrets, even from her billionaire husband. He typed the first password that came to mind, Lily, access denied. That he tried another, the date of their first kiss, access denied. That he tried the combination lock on the small drawer. It opened easily to 070417, the date of their wedding. The drawer was empty. Completely empty. Not a single utility bill, tax form, or passport remained. She hadn't just packed the essentials, she had purged her identity from the apartment. The panic clawed at his throat. He needed access to that computer. It was the only digital trace of her he had. He stepped back, ran a hand through his hair, and took a deep, stabilizing breath. He was Michael Sterling, a man who orchestrated billion-dollar deals. He didn't panic, he executed. He needed help, expert, discreet help. The call. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts, past the CEOs, the diplomats, and the socialites, landing on a name he hoped never to use, Jameson Thorne. Jameson Thorne was a former intelligence officer who now ran an elite, highly discreet security and consulting firm that specialized in corporate retrieval and delicate matters. He charged exorbitant fees, demanded absolute secrecy, and asked no questions Michael couldn't answer. Michael's voice was low, strained, and devoid of the usual corporate authority. Jameson, it's Michael Sterling. I need you. Now. Michael. You sound troubled. Jameson's voice was calm, a smooth baritone that was somehow immediately reassuring. What's the nature of the situation? My wife, Emily, is missing. As of this morning. Have you notified the police? No. I found a note. She didn't leave, Jameson. She vanished. And I believe her life, her identity, was a total fabrication. She was running from someone. And they found her. A pause on the other end. Jameson's mind was clearly already running through scenarios. I need you to bypass the security on her laptop. It's a high-end custom machine. I need to know every contact, every transaction, every file she ever touched. And I need you to translate a code. Send me the code, Michael. I'll have a 2-person team at your penthouse in 40 minutes. Tell your security team they are my consultants. No one else must know about this, Jameson ordered. Michael relayed the 2 pieces of information. The lily is not a flower, the sun rises in the west for the sleeper. C.A.M. Understood, Jameson replied. Get ready, Michael. When a person completely erases their digital footprint, they don't do it quickly. This is going to be deeper than you imagine. We are starting a hunt for a ghost. He hung up. Michael stood alone in the pristine office, clutching the small piece of paper with the initials C.A.M. The sun was now fully up. Blindingly bright, but Michael felt colder than ever. 40 minutes later, the Sterling penthouse was subtly infiltrated. Jameson's team arrived in a discreet black sedan, posing as IT consultants sent to upgrade the home network. The team consisted of 2 people, Dr. Lena Cross, a cyber forensics expert whose hands moved with impossible speed over a keyboard, and Victor Rourke, a quiet, powerfully built man with a permanent expression of professional detachment, whose job was to ensure Michael and Lena remained undisturbed. Michael led them directly to the office. She scrubbed her paper trail. Victor, Michael explained, his voice tight. No passport, no documents. Everything rests on this machine. Victor nodded, scanning the room before settling near the door. A silent guardian, Lena, meanwhile, had already opened her specialized toolkit. She didn't bother trying brute force, she employed a complex series of hardware bypasses and rootkit injections. The room was silent save for the soft clicking of Lena's keys. This is not a standard firewall, Mr. Sterling, Lena murmured, her eyes glued to the scrolling lines of code on her own terminal. She built this defense herself. It's layered, designed not just to keep people out, but to ensure any failed attempts wipe the drive instantly. How long? Michael pressed. If she's as good as this code suggests, it could take days. But she made one mistake. She had to use the computer regularly, which means she left small, routine entry points. 10 tense minutes passed. Michael paced the plush rug, feeling helpless. He finally stopped and took the piece of paper bearing the initials C.A.M. from his pocket. While you work on that, Lena, tell me what you make of this. Found it penciled in a book she owned. C.A.M. Lena glanced up, her expression unchanging. It's a 3-letter acronym. Could be anything, a city, a company, a code name, or the initials of a person. Unless we have context, it's a dead end. The main code, Michael insisted, handing her the copy of Emily's letter. The lily is not a flower, the sun rises in the west for the sleeper. Lena read it twice. Highly stylized, almost theatrical. It sounds like a trigger phrase or a key for a cipher. Lily is usually an obvious plant reference, but here it's explicitly denied. The second half, sun rises in the west, is an inversion of natural law. Sleeper suggests someone waiting to be activated, or someone who is unaware of their true status. She shook her head. It's too vague for immediate intelligence analysis. We need data. Give me 10 more minutes on this laptop. The breach. Just as Michael was about to reply, a soft, high-pitched ping echoed from the laptop. I'm in, Lena announced, leaning back slightly. She used an obsolete encryption algorithm, disguised as a standard operating system update. Clever. She was confident no one would look for something so outdated. Lena quickly navigated the file structure. Michael leaned over her shoulder, his anticipation agonizing. The desktop is clean, as expected, Lena noted. But look at the deep structure. She maintained 3 distinct user profiles. Emily Sterling, active/public, filled with benign files, social schedules, charity contacts, and investment portfolios. All of it confirmed that Emily Sterling identity.e. H, inactive/deep, completely empty, created 2 years ago and never used. A decoy or a planned exit route, Lillian Vane, hidden/encrypted. This profile was nested so deep it was almost invisible. The files were not documents, they were thousands of pages of encrypted data, mostly text and geographical coordinates. Lillian Vane, Michael repeated, the name tasting foreign and bitter. The name she was running from. Likely the original identity, Lena confirmed. She didn't scrub this. This is the truth. Lena began the arduous process of decrypting the files. The first document that opened was not a manifesto or a plan, but a heavily redacted file labeled, Operative, Lillian Vane, Code, The Lily. Michael gasped. The Lily. Ah. Now the code makes sense, Lena said calmly, her eyes fixed on the screen. Lillian Vane was the Lily. Her identity was a code name, not just a flower. It means the group she was running from uses codenames based on natural elements. The file listed Lillian's skills: fluency in 6 languages, exceptional proficiency in close combat, deep knowledge of cryptography, and a specialty in information extraction. This was not the Emily who organized silent auctions, this was a trained operative. Below the skill set was a brief, chilling paragraph: Association, the organization known informally as the Syndicate. Operative Lillian Vane was a key member of the Acquisitions Division until her unauthorized defection on July 4, 2018, 1 year after the wedding date. In this identity, threat level, internal extreme. Possesses compromising data on multiple high-ranking members. Target for immediate retrieval or termination. The Syndicate, Michael murmured, his heart sinking. He had heard the name whispered in the dark corners of international finance, a shadowy consortium involved in everything from corporate espionage to asset manipulation. He was married to a defector from a criminal shadow organization. Suddenly, a massive, unredacted text file popped up. It was dated yesterday. Subject, Michael Sterling, Financial Vulnerability Assessment. The document detailed every secret weakness of Michael's businesses, every discreet offshore account, every sensitive political contact. It was a complete blueprint for his financial and personal destruction. She wasn't just running, Mr. Sterling, Lena stated, her voice losing its detachment. She was preparing to fight, or at least to secure her leverage. Look at the last line in the document. Michael leaned in. The line was stark: status, escape plan initiated. Target, CM rendezvous point, the sleeper's door. Michael's eyes widened. CAM and the sleeper's door, the code. The code wasn't a warning, Michael, Lena said, turning to him. It was a destination. She didn't want you to forget her, she wanted you to follow her. This sleeper is the person who can help her disappear, and CAM is the location. Michael felt a surge of adrenaline mix with the crushing realization of his wife's deception. She had left him a key, hoping he would risk everything to follow the ghost of Emily to the reality of Lillian Vane. Lena, search every geographical database, every contact list, every archived email for CAM and the sleeper. Victor, prepare the jet. We are going to CAM. Dr. Lena Cross worked with the focused intensity of a surgeon, tearing through the remaining layers of encryption on Lillian Vane's hidden profile. I found it, Michael, she announced, 30 minutes later, her voice tight with professional triumph. I cross-referenced CAM with the geographical coordinates found in the escape plan initiated document. It's a match. CAM stands for Chalet Ethelred, Montreux. Michael stared at the screen. Montreux, Switzerland. On the shores of Lake Geneva, nestled near the Alps. A ski chalet. That's her bolt hole. More than a chalet, Lena corrected, pulling up satellite images and public property records. It's a massive, secluded mountain estate, surrounded by high-tech fencing, purchased under a complex web of shell corporations and trusts. The final layer of ownership traces back to an anonymous trust created 7 years ago, shortly before you and Emily were married. She was preparing for this even then, Michael muttered, the depth of the deception chilling him. The trust, who's the beneficiary? The principal beneficiary is listed as E.S. Emily Sterling. But the contingent beneficiary, the one who takes control if E.S. disappears or dies, is listed as the sleeper. There it is again, Michael said, striking the desk with the flat of his hand. The sleeper. That name is the key to everything. Victor Rourke, who had been monitoring the door and quietly relaying information, stepped forward. Montreux has a small, discreet international airport, Mr. Sterling. The security is excellent, but we can manage a landing without attracting undue attention. Get the jet prepped, Victor. Fuel, flight plan, and arrange ground transport. We leave in 2 hours. Michael was back in his element, planning, executing, and moving with the precision of a corporate takeover, the financial trail. While Victor made arrangements, Michael tasked Lena with one final, critical search. She kept a profile of my financial vulnerabilities, Michael said, gesturing at the screen. That means she was preparing leverage against the syndicate, or perhaps against me. But she also ran the finances for our charity, the Sterling Philanthropic Foundation. You think she used the charity to fund her escape? Lena asked. She would never steal from the needy, Michael said instinctively, then paused, the weight of the past few hours hitting him. My name is not Emily. My life was a lie. He shook the thought away. She was a master manipulator. Search the SPF's expenditure for any unusual, large, untraceable payments made in the last 48 hours. Payments that might fund a global escape. Lena began scrolling through the Foundation's meticulous records. After several minutes, she found an anomaly, 2 very large wire transfers, dated early this morning, totaling $50 million. Here, Lena pointed. 2 transfers. One to a company called Lotus Secure Investments in Singapore, the other to a numbered account in the Cayman Islands. They were labeled Acquisition of Future Assets. Lotus Secure, Michael repeated. Change the word lily to lotus and you have another flower motif. This is the syndicate's financial arm. Exactly. The money is flowing into syndicate accounts, Lena confirmed. But here's the strange part. Look at the description of the transfer to the Cayman account. It reads, for purchase of the sleeper's debt. Michael's eyes narrowed. She didn't just run, she didn't just empty my personal accounts. She took $50 million from our joint charity and used it to buy the debt of a person named the Sleeper from the syndicate. The Sleeper isn't a code name for a place or an entity, Lena realized aloud. The Sleeper is a person. A person who owes the syndicate a massive debt. Emily, Lillian, used your money, Michael, to purchase that person's freedom or their life. The truth crystallized, cold and sharp. Lillian Vane was an operative whose current mission was to save someone from the syndicate's control. She hadn't run away from danger, she had run into a rescue operation, sacrificing her beautiful, false life with Michael to save the Sleeper, the decoy and the confession. Michael stood, his exhaustion replaced by a burning, resolute focus. He needed to understand the scope of the threat before landing in Montreux. Lena, before you pack up, is there any personal message from Lillian in that data? Anything that explains why she chose me, why she lied, why she is doing this? Lena searched the Lillian Vane profile again, looking past the mission files and the financial leverage. Deep in an unsorted folder labeled Memories, she found a single, unencrypted audio file, dated just 2 days prior. Michael pressed play. Emily's voice, Lillian's voice, filled the silent office. It was raw, strained, and filled with a pain he had never heard. I'm recording this knowing he will find it. Knowing this perfect, fragile world I built is about to collapse. Michael, my love. The syndicate caught up to me in London 7 years ago. They had a mission, a retrieval operation. I was supposed to extract him, the Sleeper, but I couldn't. I owe him everything. When I was just a frightened girl, he saved my life, and that act cost him his freedom. They used that debt to control me. They didn't just want me to run an operation, they wanted me to get close to you. To Michael Sterling. They wanted a financial conduit, a path into your network, to bring down rival assets. They forced me to marry you. That's the bitter truth. But the lie became the truth. You broke the operative in me, Michael. You showed me what real love, what real loyalty, looks like. I became Emily because I fell in love with you. I can't let them use you anymore. I'm trading myself, and your money, for the sleeper's release. The chalet in Montreux is the place where I was supposed to transfer the sleeper to the syndicate. I'm hoping I can use that location and that 50 million to buy enough time for all three of us to vanish. If you follow me, you risk everything. But if you read this, then you haven't forgotten me, and I know you won't stop. Please, be careful. I love you, Michael. Forgive Lillian Vane, but remember Emily Sterling. The recording ended, leaving only a low hiss of static. Michael stood motionless, tears blurring his vision. He wasn't just chasing a wife, he was chasing a woman who, against her will, had fallen in love with him while running a deeply perilous, 7-year-long operation. She wasn't just a liar, she was a victim and, now, a hero trying to save her first savior using his love and his money. Victor, Michael commanded, his voice now steel. Montreux. And double the security detail. I'm going in hot. The Gulfstream G650 sliced through the night sky, its cabin humming with quiet efficiency. Michael, stripped of his silk robe and dressed in tailored travel clothes, sat across from Victor Rourke. Dr. Lena Cross was in the small communication suite, frantically working to secure a clean channel for their arrival in Montreux. Michael had spent the first hour of the flight absorbing the full profile of Lillian Vane, the operative. He studied her weaknesses, a deep emotional loyalty to the sleeper, and her strengths, her ability to anticipate an enemy's move. He had to think like her. The transaction for the sleeper's debt, Michael began, addressing Victor. It's the only reason Lillian risked using my company funds. She knew I could trace it. It's her breadcrumb. Victor, polishing the scope on a rifle he'd discreetly brought, looked up. A wire transfer of that size must leave a paper trail on the receiving end, even if it's a shell corporation. Exactly. Lena, Michael called, I need you to work backward from the $50 million. Focus on the Lotus Secure Investments transfer. I want the identity of the person who approved the receiving end of that money. The syndicate's financial negotiator. Lena immediately got to work, burrowing into the intricate web of Singapore's corporate registries. Utilizing Michael's high-level government access, usually reserved for billion-dollar deals, to skip the red tape, the accountant of shadows 10 minutes before their descent into Switzerland, Lena called Michael forward. The funds went into a holding account managed by a person named Elias Vance, she reported, her eyes wide. He's not just an accountant, Michael. He's a facilitator, a known syndicate operative who handles their highest-risk acquisitions and debt collections. He rarely leaves the shadow. Michael leaned in, studying the grainy photo Lena had pulled up, a man in his late 50s, impeccably dressed, with cold, calculating eyes. Elias Vance. He's the man Lillian is meeting. He holds the sleeper's life, Michael confirmed. Now, find every piece of known information on him. His preferred locations, his security profile, his psychological weaknesses. He has two major patterns, Lena quickly summarized. First, he is obsessed with high-value, non-liquid assets, art, historical artifacts, things that can't be traced like money. Second, he avoids physical conflict at all costs. He is a pencil pusher who uses others for muscle. Perfect, Michael said, a plan forming in his mind. Victor, Vance will be surrounded by muscle, likely a small, highly trained team. We are not going in to fight. We are going in to negotiate an asset retrieval. With respect, Michael, Victor interjected, Lillian's file says she is a trained operative. Vance is not meeting her for coffee. If she's trying to buy her savior's freedom, it's going to be a forced negotiation. Then we will control the negotiation, Michael said, looking out at the snow-capped mountains. Lillian left me the money and the location. I will provide the distraction. Arrival in Montreux. The jet landed smoothly at the small Montreux airport. A black, heavily armored SUV with 2 local, trusted security drivers was waiting. The transition was seamless, quiet, and fast. They drove for 20 minutes, ascending winding, secluded roads until they reached Chalet Ethelred. The gate was a massive, wrought iron structure, flanked by sophisticated security cameras and infrared sensors. It looked less like a luxury retreat and more like a fortress. "The sleeper's door," Michael murmured, recognizing the final piece of the code. "The front entrance is heavily fortified," Victor observed, studying the infrared mapping from his tablet. "There are 4 armed guards patrolling the perimeter. At least 3 more inside. Vance is not taking chances." Michael stepped out of the SUV into the crisp, alpine air. The chalet itself was a beautiful, dark wood structure bathed in the glow of motion sensor lights. He knew Lillian was inside. "Lillian said she was buying enough time for all 3 of us to vanish," Michael reminded Victor. "That means she's either been captured after the deal went bad, or she is actively negotiating. Either way, Elias Vance is the target." Michael took his phone and crafted a short, succinct message to Elias Vance via a private, secure server. Subject: "The Sleeper's Debt and the Sterling Foundation." Mr. Vance, I believe you are in possession of a recent acquisition from the Sterling Foundation. I suggest you open the gate and allow me access, or I will initiate a full global liquidation and public exposure of every asset linked to Lotus Secure Investments. The $50 million is the least of your concerns. That I'm here to complete the transaction. I am Michael Sterling, and you have exactly 5 minutes. That he pressed send. The message was a shot in the dark, a high-stakes bluff that relied entirely on Elias Vance's profile, his fear of public financial exposure and his hatred of physical risk. They waited. The mountain air was still. The only sound was the faint, rhythmic whir of the security cameras. 3 minutes passed. Victor raised his weapon, readying for a perimeter breach. Then, with a heavy, grinding sigh of electric motors, the massive wrought iron gate slowly began to swing inward. "He took the bait," Michael whispered, a grim smile touching his lips. "He wants to keep his hands clean. He thinks he can out-negotiate me. Or he thinks he can kill you and walk away with the $50 million, Victor countered, stepping forward to lead the way. "He won't kill me yet. I'm his only link to $50 billion, Michael said, his eyes fixed on the illuminated, foreboding entrance of Chalet Ethelred. Michael walked through the open gate, moving from the cold night air into the unknown, walking into the trap Lillian Vane had been running from for 7 years. Michael stepped into the cavernous entrance hall of Chalet Ethelred, Victor Rourke immediately taking up a defensive position behind him. The air inside was warm, humid, and smelled faintly of expensive cigar smoke and pine. The hall was 3 stories high, centered by a sweeping staircase. 3 large men in dark suits, syndicate muscle. Clearly professionals, stood strategically placed, their hands subtly close to concealed weapons. At the base of the staircase stood Elias Vance. He was exactly as the photo suggested, thin, immaculate, and radiating cold, calculating arrogance. He held a glass of amber liquid and regarded Michael with undisguised contempt. "Mr. Sterling," Vance purred, setting his drink down. His voice was smooth, cultured, and utterly chilling. "A very aggressive first impression. Liquidation threats. That's rather cliché for a man of your supposed finesse. The finer points of finance are wasted on men who deal in kidnapping and debt slavery, Vance," Michael retorted, stepping forward. He projected the calm authority that managed a global empire, refusing to acknowledge the armed threats. "Let's dispense with the pleasantries. Where is my wife, Lillian Vane? And where is the asset I just purchased?" Vance let out a dry, rattling chuckle. "Oh, the amateur is attempting a rescue. How romantic. First, Mr. Sterling, Lillian Vane is no longer your wife. She is, as of this morning, a fugitive, and the seller of the asset. She initiated the transaction, I merely facilitated the transfer." Vance gestured to the largest of his bodyguards, who moved to a heavy, dark oak door tucked under the staircase. As for the asset you purchased, allow me to introduce the sleeper. The guard pulled the door open, revealing a small, dimly lit room. Tied to a heavy wooden chair, head bowed, was a person. Michael's breath hitched. It was a young man, barely in his 20s, pale and fragile. But what made Michael freeze was the face. He looked uncannily like Lillian, the same sharp jawline, the same high cheekbones, even the same rich, dark hair. Vance watched Michael's reaction with cruel amusement. Meet Julian Vane. Lillian's beloved twin brother. And the real reason she married you, Mr. Sterling. The truth is, Lillian wasn't running from the syndicate, she was running for him. Julian was the only surviving heir to the Vane family, a family that foolishly tried to double-cross the syndicate a decade ago. We took Julian as collateral, the sleeper, a dormant piece of leverage we held over Lillian. Michael felt a fresh wave of nausea. The whole 7 years, the love, the life, all a lie rooted in a desperate sister's love for her captive brother. Lillian has purchased his debt, $50 million for his release, Vance continued, pulling a document from his coat pocket. The transaction is complete. Julian Vane is now a free man. Your property, Mr. Sterling. Vance tossed a small electronic device to Michael. It was a standard GPS tracker. Your wife took the $50 million, and in return, she delivered him to the chalet, ensuring his safe transfer. She then ensured her own escape. She never intended to stay and fight. She is likely already halfway across the world, forging a new identity. No, Michael said, his voice flat with certainty. She left me the code and the destination. She said the chalet was where she was supposed to transfer him. She was buying time for all three of us. Ah, the code, Vance sighed dramatically. A bit of sentimental nonsense. You see, the code wasn't a map for you to follow. It was a message to us, ensuring that we understood her terms. She was exchanging her high-value status as the Lily and your fortune for her brother. The moment he was delivered to this chalet, the sleeper's door, her obligation was complete. Michael looked at the fragile young man, Julian Vane, and understood Lillian's desperate sacrifice. She knew Michael would follow the breadcrumbs. She had paid for her brother's life with Michael's money, her freedom, and the destruction of her true love. What is the catch, Vance? Michael demanded, ignoring his pain. You let me walk in here, knowing I'm the only person who can cause a global freeze on your assets. You wouldn't do that unless you wanted something more. Vance smiled, a shark-like flash of teeth. Astute, Mr. Sterling. Lillian's $50 million was for the debt alone. But the syndicate now requires a penalty for her 7 years of unauthorized, luxurious defection. And for the compromising data she undoubtedly copied from our network before she vanished. Vance snapped his fingers, and the three guards simultaneously raised their automatic weapons, pointing them at Victor and Michael. The price for your survival, Mr. Sterling, is simple, Vance said, his voice dropping to a serious, predatory tone. I need you to open a single, specialized, unsecured account on your private server, one I know only you have access to. It's the account you use to move emergency, untraceable capital, a personal vault. You will fill it with $500 million. Michael didn't flinch. $500 million for a penalty? And then you let me and my new asset walk free? Precisely, Vance confirmed. We keep the money, you keep the brother. Lillian Vane will be free of us. But perpetually on the run. You, Michael Sterling, will simply have paid a very steep divorce settlement. A business transaction. No one is physically hurt. The proposition hung heavy in the air. Michael's mind raced. He could access the money, but doing so would make him a puppet of the syndicate, constantly extorted. But refusing meant certain death for him and, likely, a renewed hunt for Julian. He looked at Julian Vane, still slumped in the chair. The sleeper was awake, but terrified. I need proof, Michael stated calmly. Proof that Lillian is truly gone and that she is not your prisoner. And I need a guarantee, a signed, notarized document from a high-ranking syndicate member that Julian Vane's debt is permanently cleared. Vance's expression tightened. Michael's demand for legal proof of the deal was an unexpected move, a business maneuver in a life-or-death situation. You are in no position to bargain, Vance snarled, losing a sliver of his composure. Yes, I am, Michael countered, staring him down. If you kill me, you get nothing. The global assets freeze. You get a headline, not $500 million. I walk out of here alive, you get the $500 million. Business, Vance. Let's finish the deal. The tension in the chalet hall was thick enough to choke on. Elias Vance stared at Michael, his calculating mind weighing the risk of killing the billionaire against the promise of $500 million. Vance finally conceded, but his eyes were hard as flint. You overestimate your leverage, Sterling. But fine. The syndicate prefers clean transactions. Victor, he addressed the bodyguard, lower your weapon. If Mr. Sterling attempts any hostile movement, execute him and the boy. Vance reached into his coat and pulled out a specialized satellite phone. He walked a few steps away, positioning his back to Michael, and began a quiet, terse conversation in a language Michael recognized as Albanian, a common language among Eastern European organized crime circles. Vance was requesting the necessary legal and financial authorizations from the syndicate's top brass. This was Michael's chance. Victor Rourke, keeping his rifle down but ready, positioned himself between Michael and the guards, ensuring his body language was aggressive yet non-threatening. Michael took 2 slow, measured steps toward the hidden room where Julian Vane was bound. The third syndicate guard was still standing in the doorway, but he was distracted, listening to Vance's furious conversation. Julian, Michael whispered, his voice low and intimate, the kind of voice one uses to discuss the weather in a crowded room. Julian Vane raised his head slowly. His eyes, the exact luminous green as Lillian's, were ringed with exhaustion and fear, but they held a flicker of intelligence. Is she safe? Julian mouthed, his lips barely moving. We don't know, Michael replied, focusing his gaze on the knots binding Julian's wrists to the chair arm. Vance says she's gone, that she delivered you and ran. He says this chalet was her final rendezvous point to complete her deal. Julian shook his head, a tiny, almost imperceptible movement. No. It wasn't, Michael understood. Lillian's final message, the lily is not a flower, the sun rises in the west for the sleeper, was not just a destination for Michael, it was a distraction for the syndicate. She intended to be here, but she had a fail-safe. Julian, listen closely. Vance believes your sister left him an insurance file, compromising syndicate data. Did she? Julian nodded, then pointed his chin toward his own chest. You have it? Michael pressed, his heart pounding. Julian blinked twice, a confirmed yes. Where? Michael needed a location. This data was the key to his survival and Lillian's leverage. Julian's eyes darted quickly to the guard, then to the floor directly beneath his chair, and finally, his lips formed a single, strained word, sun. The sun rises in the west for the sleeper. The second half of the code. The sun. Michael repeated softly. He looked at the floor beneath Julian. There was no sun symbol, just dark wooden planks. But the chair was placed near a small, ornamental brass inlay in the floor, a slightly tarnished piece of metal that resembled a compass rose. Though the north point was smudged, Michael immediately shifted his gaze to the windows high above the entrance hall. The light was coming in from the east, as it should be. The clue was a deliberate inversion. The sun rises in the west for the sleeper. If the sun was supposed to rise in the west for Julian, the sleeper, it meant the key was in the west side of the brass inlay. The compass rose was pointing east, but Julian was pointing to the opposite. Michael took another slow step closer, pretending to examine the chair's structural integrity. The guard shifted his weight, suspicious. The chair is antique, Michael commented loudly, distracting the guard. Is the asset damaged, Vance? Vance, still on the phone, simply waved him off dismissively. Michael leaned down, pretending to check Julian's restraints. His fingers brushed the cold brass inlay near the chair's left leg, the west side relative to the compass point. There was a minuscule seam, invisible to the eye, but detectable to the touch that it was a hidden compartment. Michael had to retrieve the information without being noticed. "Julian, I'm getting you out of here," Michael whispered. "When I move, you need to be ready to fall. Understand?" Julian gave another determined blink. The transaction. Vance finished his call, slamming the phone shut with a triumphant click. "The authorization is granted, Sterling. The document is being transmitted now. And your transfer request for $500 million has been intercepted and approved by your bank. We are almost done." Vance picked up a tablet displaying a complex legal document with a heavy, stylized seal, the syndicate's mark. "Sign this document," Vance commanded, pushing the tablet toward Michael. "It releases the syndicate from all past, present, and future claims regarding the Vane family debt, and guarantees the penalty payment." Michael took the tablet. The display was perfectly positioned over the hidden compartment on the floor. "Before I sign this," Michael said, taking a moment to look at the contract, "I want to see the proof that Lillian is gone. A recent photo, a video, anything. This is a $500 million transaction, Vance. I need good faith." Vance hesitated, then smirked. "Fair enough. She's a theatrical one, you're Lillian. She left a little goodbye gift." Vance clicked a button on a remote. A large video screen descended from the high ceiling, projecting an image. It was a shaky, low-resolution video of Lillian Vane. She was alone, wearing simple clothes and standing on a rocky shoreline, with a turbulent, dark sea behind her. Her face was grim, but determined. She looked directly into the lens. "Michael, if you are seeing this, it means I succeeded. Julian is safe. And you are playing the game. Don't sign anything. The game has changed. The sun may rise in the west, but the dawn is in the east. Trust the dawn." The video cut out. The image was gone, replaced by the blank screen. Vance was furious. The arrogant witch. She set up a timer. In that moment of chaos and Vance's distraction, Michael acted. He leaned over the tablet, ostensibly to sign the document, but his other hand pressed the seam on the brass inlay. With a barely audible click, the small compartment sprang open. Michael scooped out a miniature, highly encrypted flash drive and slipped it into his trouser pocket, all while pretending to read the contract. "The dawn is in the east, Vance," Michael said calmly, handing the tablet back. "She's telling me to look for the next move in the east. I'm not signing this." Vance's face was livid. "Then you just signed your death warrant, Sterling." As the guards raised their weapons, Michael whispered one last word to Julian, loud enough for Vance to hear, "Run." Julian didn't hesitate. He strained against the ropes, throwing his entire body weight backwards. The chair tipped, sending him crashing to the floor with a loud thud. It was the distraction Victor needed. "Go!" Victor roared, shoving Michael hard toward a secondary door and simultaneously engaging the syndicate muscle in a brutal, efficient hand-to-hand fight. Michael raced for the door, the flash drive burning like a secret in his pocket, the final message ringing in his ears. "The dawn is in the east." Victor Rourke was a blur of controlled violence. The three syndicate guards were trained, but Victor was an ex-intelligence operative operating on pure adrenaline and focused rage. He moved with a brutal economy, taking down the first guard with a sharp, disabling blow to the throat, and the second with a swift strike to the kneecap. "Go! Get him out, Michael!" Victor yelled, grappling with the third, largest guard near the staircase. Michael yanked the ropes tying Julian's wrists, tearing the weakened bindings with a desperate strength he didn't know he possessed. He grabbed Julian under the arms and dragged the semi-conscious young man through the heavy secondary door that Victor had indicated. They crashed into a narrow, dark utility corridor filled with massive ventilation pipes and heating ducts. It was a space designed for maintenance, not luxury. "Which way?" Michael gasped, adrenaline spiking as he heard the muffled grunts and shouts of the fight behind the door. Julian, shivering violently, pointed a trembling hand toward the ground, directly at a small, rusty metal grate recessed into the concrete floor. The air exchange. Lillian's safe route. She used it before. Michael knew Lillian wouldn't rely on luck. She must have activated this route before leaving. He dropped Julian, retrieved a small, heavy wrench hanging nearby on the wall, and began frantically prying open the bolted grate. The sleepers escape. A moment later, the door behind them burst open. Elias Vance stood there, eyes wide with cold fury, flanked by the surviving bodyguard, both holding weapons. Vance hadn't chased, he had directed. Stop. Or I swear, Sterling, I will make your death slow and agonizing. Vance shrieked, aiming his pistol. Victor, bloodied but unbowed, staggered through the doorway behind Vance, having dispatched the last guard. Victor! Get down! Michael yelled. Before Vance could fire, a sharp, metallic object shot past Michael's ear, impacting the fluorescent bulb above Vance's head with a shatter. Darkness plunged the corridor into near-total blackness, illuminated only by the faint light spilling from the main hall. It was Julian. With a primal instinct, he had thrown the sharp buckle of his broken restraint harness. Down here! Julian screamed, suddenly finding a reserve of strength. Michael heaved the heavy grate aside. A cramped, dust-choked vertical shaft dropped into the darkness. Victor, the grate! Cover us! Michael shoved Julian, then himself, into the hole. Victor didn't hesitate. He dropped the last guard's rifle across the opening, creating a temporary barrier, and quickly slid down the shaft after Michael and Julian. The air in here is toxic. Victor rasped, landing heavily in a tunnel that was barely large enough to crawl through. East. The dawn is in the east. Julian insisted, pointing ahead. Michael clicked on the small light attached to his wristwatch. They were in a dark, cold, pre-built tunnel, likely part of an ancient smuggler's route or a forgotten maintenance duct, heading downward and distinctly east, away from the chalet's front entrance. Vance's pursuit above them, the enraged voice of Elias Vance echoed down the shaft. They're in the vents. Find them. I want them alive, especially the one who hit my light. Michael pushed Julian ahead of him. Go, Julian, keep moving. What's at the end of this? An old coal furnace room, Julian wheezed, crawling fast despite his weakness. Underground. Lillian said it's secured with a temporary keypad. Code is, the dawn. They crawled through the suffocating darkness for what felt like an eternity, the scrape of their bodies against the rough concrete and the distant shouts of the syndicate guards above their only companions. Finally, the tunnel opened into a small, humid room. In the center stood a hulking, rusted coal furnace. A small, reinforced metal door, clearly a recent addition, was set into the concrete wall. Beside it, a blinking red keypad. The code, Julian. Quickly. Michael urged, pulling out the encrypted flash drive and slipping it securely into a zippered pocket in his jacket lining. DAWN, Julian spelled out, his breath ragged. Michael punched in the letters. The red light turned green, and the heavy door hissed open, revealing a short flight of stone steps leading up. Go. Victor, get in here. Now. Michael covered the doorway. Victor scrambled out of the tunnel, bruised and bleeding from a cut above his eye. He slammed the keypad door shut and spun the heavy security lock built into the frame. That'll buy us maybe 60 seconds, Victor panted. Where now? The east and the reveal. Michael pushed Julian up the steps and followed. They emerged into a small, insulated, dirt floor shed, used for storing lumber and gardening tools. The shed had a standard wooden door. Unlocked, Michael threw the door open, stepping out into the cold, pre-dawn air. The chalet Ethelred was perched on the western slope of the mountain. Looking east, the direction of the dawn, Michael saw the lights of Montreux far below, but closer, hidden by a stand of pines, was a perfectly camouflaged helipad. And resting on it, idling quietly, was a sleek, black military-grade stealth helicopter. The pilot, a woman with short, practical blonde hair and thermal goggles pushed up onto her forehead, saw them and gave a sharp, professional nod. This wasn't Lillian's escape, it was Lillian's rescue plan. Michael helped Julian stumble toward the helicopter. She did it, Julian. The dawn is in the east. She secured our way out. As they reached the aircraft, the pilot spoke over the headset Michael instinctively put on. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Sterling. Lillian Vane sends her regards. She's waiting for you at the secure rendezvous point." "Where is the rendezvous point?" Michael demanded, strapping Julian into a seat. The pilot smiled, a quick, efficient flash of white teeth. "It's the first place the syndicate would never look, Michael. The true meaning of the sun rises in the west for the sleeper." Victor secured the door, and the helicopter lifted into the air in a swift, silent ascent. Below them, they could hear the faint, frantic sound of sirens and vehicles arriving at the chalet. Michael looked at the pilot. "Tell me the meaning. Where are we going?" "We are going back to where Lillian built her lie," the pilot said, banking hard toward the descending lights of Lake Geneva. "The sleeper is going to the Sterling Philanthropic Foundation office in London. It's the last place they'd expect us to hide their $50 million worth of collateral." Michael felt a surge of respect and awe. Lillian hadn't run to a new safe house, she had run home, hiding the most valuable asset in plain sight. Under the cloak of his honest business, the stealth helicopter sliced through the pre-dawn sky, a silent shadow against the stars. Inside, Michael, Victor, and Julian were strapped into their seats. Julian, though still weak, was visibly calmer, his green eyes darting around the sophisticated cabin with a new sense of freedom. Michael, however, felt a different kind of tension. He had the flash drive, Lillian's insurance file, and he needed to know what it contained. He pulled out the small device, its sleek, metallic surface cold in his palm. "Lena," Michael called into his comms unit, knowing she was still monitoring from Montreux, awaiting the outcome of their escape. "I have the flash drive. I need to access it. Securely." "Understood, Mr. Sterling. The helicopter has a dedicated encrypted satellite link. I'll patch you through to a clean terminal." Lena's voice crackled through. A small screen flickered on a panel in front of Michael's seat. Lena's face, calm and focused, appeared. "All right, Mr. Sterling. Insert the drive. My systems will create a sandbox environment, a virtual quarantine, to ensure no embedded tracking or malware can activate." Michael inserted the flash drive. The screen went blank for a moment, then a complex interface filled with scrolling code appeared. "It's heavily encrypted," Lena observed, her fingers flying across her own keyboard remotely. "This isn't just data. It's a system within a system. Give me a minute." Lillian's legacy. Michael watched the code, a jumble of lines and symbols that meant nothing to him, but everything to Lena. Victor, meanwhile, checked the helicopter's defensive systems, ensuring they were untraceable. "Got it," Lena exclaimed, a faint smile touching her lips. "This is ingenious, Michael. She didn't just copy files. She created a digital weapon." The screen shifted, revealing a sleek, dark interface with a single, prominent icon in the center, a stylized lotus flower, but with sharp, almost predatory petals. "What is it?" Michael asked, a chill running down his spine. "This, Mr. Sterling, is a comprehensive digital map of the syndicate's entire global infrastructure," Lena explained, her voice tinged with professional admiration. "Every shell corporation, every asset, every illicit bank account, every front organization like Lotus Secure Investments, it's all here. Not just the locations, but the vulnerabilities. Passwords, backdoors, internal communication logs, even personal information on key operatives like Elias Vance." "She built a kill switch," Victor murmured, his eyes fixed on the screen. "More than a kill switch," Lena corrected. "She built an erasure protocol. This isn't designed to freeze their assets, it's designed to utterly dismantle them. It can trigger simultaneous audits, global investigations, and public data dumps that would expose the syndicate's entire network, effectively destroying them from the inside out. Michael stared at the screen, a new understanding dawning. This was Lillian's true leverage. Not just against Vance, but against the entire syndicate. She hadn't run to hide, she had run to activate this. What's the trigger? Michael demanded. How does it activate? That's the clever part, Lena replied, zooming in on a small, hidden file within the program. It's a dead man's switch. If Lillian Vane's personal biometrics, her unique iris scan or a voice print, are not registered on a specific, secure server every 72 hours, this program automatically activates and initiates the full takedown protocol. So, if she's captured, or killed, or simply disappears, Michael realized, the syndicate's entire empire collapses. She guaranteed her own survival by making herself the key to their destruction. Exactly, Lena confirmed. She didn't just buy Julian's freedom with your money, Michael. She bought your protection, and her own. The syndicate cannot touch her without committing financial suicide. The new dawn. The pilot's voice cut in. Mr. Sterling, we're approaching London airspace. ETA to the Foundation office is 20 minutes. Should I initiate the covert landing sequence? Yes, Michael confirmed, his mind racing, piecing together Lillian's master strategy. Lena, can you integrate this flash drive directly into the Sterling Foundation's main server? Can it run from there, without a trace? Yes, but it would be risky. It needs an isolated, secure network. The Foundation's server could be compromised if we're not careful. Do it, Michael ordered. I want that program running as a ghost in my machine. Vance thinks he has me. He thinks I'm desperate. But Lillian just gave me the biggest weapon in the game. He looked at Julian. Julian, your sister planned this. Every step. She used me to buy your freedom, but she also used me to store this, to keep it safe until she could trigger it. Julian, still pale but with a spark in his eyes, gave a weak nod. She always had a plan. So, what's our next move, Mr. Sterling? Victor asked, a grim satisfaction on his face. We have the asset, we have the weapon. Do we wait for her? Michael thought of Lillian's last words on the video, the dawn is in the east. Trust the dawn. No, Michael said, a steely resolve settling into his gaze. We don't wait for her. We initiate the next phase of her plan. Lena, can you trace the last known location where Lillian's biometrics were registered? Working on it, Michael, Lena replied, already typing. She has a temporary registration point in a small, remote cabin in the Scottish Highlands, a backup safe house. It's been active for the last 3 days. That's where she went after leaving the chalet, Michael realized. She completed the transaction, secured Julian's release, then went to her designated safe point to ensure the syndicate knew she was still alive and the dead man's switch was active. So, we go to Scotland? Victor asked. No, Michael said, shaking his head. We activate the system. We ensure the syndicate knows this weapon is in play. And then, we wait for them to come to us. Michael smiled, a cold, dangerous smile. Vance thinks he's extorted me. He thinks he's broken my wife. But Lillian Vane just gave me a way to bring down an entire criminal empire. And I'm going to finish the job for her. The stealth helicopter performed a silent, masterful landing on the unmarked rooftop pad of the Sterling Philanthropic Foundation's London headquarters. The building was one of Michael's oldest and most trusted assets, a fortress of transparent corporate legitimacy. Victor immediately secured Julian in a hidden, high-security bunker beneath Michael's private office, utilizing the Foundation's own top-tier security personnel, who were loyal only to Michael and unaware of the full scope of the crisis. Michael moved straight to the communications center, where Lena Cross had remotely established her command post. Lena, Phase 1 is complete. Julian is secure, and the erasure protocol is integrated into a segregated server within this building, Michael stated, his voice calm and authoritative. It's running smoothly, Michael, Lena confirmed. The system is fully armed. The clock is ticking down to the 72-hour biometrics check. If Lillian doesn't register, the syndicate is finished. Good, Michael said. Now, Phase 2, we inform Elias Vance that the game is over. We don't wait for them to guess, we tell them exactly what we have and where we are. Michael and Lena worked quickly, crafting a single, targeted, encrypted file. They attached a screenshot of the erasure protocol running on the Foundation server, highlighting the dead man's switch countdown. They didn't threaten the full activation, they simply showed Vance the lever Michael now controlled. The file was sent, not to Vance's personal device, but to the official internal communications network of Lotus Secure Investments, ensuring it went straight to the top of the syndicate's command chain. The lure Michael paced the length of the room, looking out over the sleeping city. Vance is a negotiator. He reports to a hidden command structure. He won't authorize a full-scale assault until the $500 million is irrevocably lost. He will try to retrieve the flash drive and Julian, cleanly. He'll send a small, specialized retrieval team, Victor predicted, entering the command center. Fast in, fast out. They'll want to snatch the boy, grab the drive, and then silence us. They won't risk a firefight that alerts the local authorities. Exactly, Michael confirmed. This office is the last place they expected us to run, but it's the perfect place for a trap. Lillian built a beautiful lie here, and we'll use that beauty as bait. Michael laid out his plan to Victor and Lena. The bait, Julian Vane, would be moved to the main floor's executive conference room, appearing to be under light guard. This room was a high-profile, glass-walled space visible from the street, ensuring the syndicate could easily spot their target. The drive, the server containing the erasure protocol, would be moved from the bunker to the executive conference room, creating a single, irresistible target. The trap, the office would be secretly rigged with non-lethal countermeasures, stun gas, electromagnetic pulse generators, and strategically placed cameras, all controlled from the safety of the bunker by Lena. We lure the retrieval team here, incapacitate them, and interrogate them for Lillian's location in Scotland, Michael concluded. Vance wants to negotiate, we're going to force him to. We have the leverage, Julian and the erasure protocol. The counter-move before they could finalize the defense grid. Lena's console flashed a critical alert. Michael, the message was read, and an immediate counter-response was initiated. A message from Vance? No. A movement, Lena said, her voice dropping. 2 private jets took off simultaneously from separate European cities, one from Geneva, one from Naples. They are heading toward London. But the more immediate threat. Elias Vance did not return to Geneva. He is still in Montreux. Victor frowned. He should be on the run or organizing a retreat. Why stay? Lena zoomed in on a satellite image of Chalet Ethelred. The entire chalet is now crawling with heavily armed men, at least 20. But look at the adjacent mountain slope, Michael. There's a small, unmarked excavation site just beyond the tree line. The image was blurry, but it showed heavy machinery and several black-clad figures gathered around a newly dug tunnel entrance. Vance didn't stay to chase us, Michael realized, connecting the pieces of Lillian's desperate exchange. He stayed because the sleeper's debt was about more than just Julian's freedom. He's digging up a piece of collateral Lillian exchanged for the debt. Lillian said she was saving a person, Victor argued. Perhaps. But Vance's obsession is with high-value, non-liquid assets, Michael reminded him. He might have been forced to accept Julian's release, but he secured something else of immense value that was hidden in Montreux by the Vane family long ago. Something Lillian also left in the chalet. Michael quickly reviewed Julian's file on the laptop. Julian Vane was the last member of a wealthy European banking family, known not just for their money, but for their private collection of historical artifacts. Lena, check the Vane family records, Michael instructed. Search for any mention of a deposit or safeguard hidden in the Montreux region, linked to the code, the sun rises in the west. Seconds later, Lena found a match, a heavily encoded ledger entry from 1944. The entry refers to the Sunstone, Michael, Lena read aloud. It's an ancient, priceless Babylonian artifact, a device rumored to be an infallible directional compass and a key to decoding complex historical ciphers. It was hidden by the Vane family during the war. Its location was sealed, known only to the family heir and the guardian, the sleeper. The Sunstone, Michael whispered. The sun rises in the west. It wasn't just about Julian. Lillian gave Vance a priceless artifact's location, the Vane family legacy, in exchange for Julian's debt. She traded an asset for a life. Michael now understood the full scope of Lillian's sacrifice. She didn't just spend $50 million, she surrendered her entire family inheritance. Vance wasn't coming to London just for revenge, he was sending his retrieval team to snatch Julian and the Erasure Protocol before the Syndicate lost control of the priceless Sunstone in Montreux. The Syndicate's priorities are split, Michael concluded, standing tall. Good. Distraction is our greatest asset. Victor, finish rigging the trap. Lena, activate the early warning system. We are ready for their team. Let them come. We have the sleeper, and we have the dawn. The atmosphere in the Sterling Philanthropic Foundation office, usually one of quiet, ordered philanthropy, was now charged with grim anticipation. Michael, Victor, and Lena were huddled in the secure underground bunker, watching the CCTV feeds. On the 20th floor, the executive conference room was the focal point. Julian Vane, pale but composed, was seated in the center, appearing to study a tablet. The massive server rack containing Lillian's Erasure Protocol sat conspicuously behind him. The room's glass walls, usually symbols of transparency, were now a tactical weakness Michael intended to exploit. They're close, Victor murmured, his eyes fixed on the street-level feed. 2 black vans, unmarked, moving fast. 4 in the first, 3 in the second. Standard 7-person retrieval team. Do they look like Vance's muscle? Michael asked. No, sir. Too professional, too synchronized. This is a specialized hit squad. No corporate ties. They are moving like a surgical unit, Victor confirmed. They have bypassed the parking garage security and are using the freight elevator, likely intending to breach the 20th floor directly. Lena, confirm the countermeasures are active, Michael ordered. The non-lethal defense grid, NLDG, is active, Lena replied, her fingers hovering over a custom-built console with 3 main buttons, G-gas, EMP, and lockout. We have thermal imaging, motion sensors, and remote door locks on every escape route. The arrival of the Reaper. The elevator chime rang softly on the 20th floor. The doors opened, and the 7 figures emerged. They were all dressed in slick, black tactical gear, moving with chilling fluidity. Leading them was a woman, Anya Petrov, known in the dark corners of global intelligence simply as the Reaper. She was the Syndicate's elite retrieval specialist, ruthless, precise, and known for leaving no witnesses. The Reaper surveyed the deserted floor, her gaze immediately locking onto the glass-walled conference room. Clear, the Reaper hissed into her comms unit. Target is exposed. Proceed with extraction. Priority, server first, then the asset. As the Reaper's team moved toward the conference room, Michael watched the monitor, a knot tightening in his stomach. She's not looking for a fight, she's looking for the exit. They'll be fast. The team split. 2 operatives moved to secure the rear access doors, while the Reaper and 4 others breached the conference room. The glass door shattered inward with a silent, controlled explosion. Julian barely flinched. He looked up, his face registering only mild surprise. The server, the Reaper snapped, pointing her rifle at the rack. As 2 operatives started dismantling the server cabinet, the Reaper approached Julian. Get up, asset. Your journey is over. My sister said otherwise, Julian said, his voice shaky, but holding an unnerving defiance. The trap is sprung now, Lena. Execute the plan. Michael ordered. Lena's fingers slammed down on the G-gas button. Instantly, a heavy, colorless gas began pouring from the ventilation units near the ceiling, flooding the conference room and the main hallway. The gas was a potent, non-lethal sedative, designed to incapacitate quickly. The syndicate operatives reacted instantly. One of the operatives, realizing the attack was chemical, tried to activate a ventilator. The Reaper, however, yelled a command, "Hold breath. Out." They didn't try to fight the gas, they tried to flee. But as they rushed the broken conference room door, Lena hit the lockout button. All remaining access doors on the 20th floor slammed shut, securing the perimeter. Two of the retrieval specialists staggered and fell, unconscious, their movements slowing to a confused crawl, but the Reaper and the remaining 3 operatives had managed to hold their breath long enough to get back into the main hallway. They slammed their bodies against the sealed doors, realizing they were trapped. The Reaper is adapting too fast. Victor yelled. She's ordering them to break the windows to ventilate the floor. Michael watched as 2 operatives began using reinforced tools to smash the high-security windows. They were seconds away from creating an escape route and ventilating the gas. Lena. The EMP. Hit the system immediately. Michael commanded. But Michael, the EMP will fry the server. Lillian's protocol will be destroyed. Lena protested. It's a calculated risk. If the Reaper gets the server or Julian, we lose everything. Hit it now. Lena hesitated for a fraction of a second, then her finger hit the final button. A silent, invisible wave of electromagnetic energy surged through the 20th floor. The effect was instantaneous and absolute. All electrical power died. The lights went out. The CCTV feed went black. The syndicate's sophisticated comms gear went silent. The gas ventilation system stopped. The trap had gone blind, but it was set. Darkness and recovery silence descended upon the bunker. Status report. Michael demanded, pounding the console. Power is out, all electronics are dead, Lena reported, already powering up backup battery systems. The server. I can't check its integrity yet. It's offline. But the syndicate's gear is useless. Victor, Michael ordered, his voice low and urgent. Take 3 of the Foundation's armed security guards and go to the 20th floor. Non-lethal force only. Secure the operatives and Julian. Do not engage the Reaper unless absolutely necessary. Victor nodded, grabbing a tactical kit. She'll be fighting blind, but she'll be fighting dirty, Michael. She's the professional. As Victor and the security team ascended in the emergency elevator, Michael turned to the now flickering command screen. The situation was chaotic. He had destroyed his primary weapon, the protocol, to save his secondary weapon, Julian, and neutralize the threat. The fight wasn't over. He still needed Lillian's location. Suddenly, a clean signal pierced the static on the reserve channel. It was an encrypted message, overriding the Foundation's own security layers. The screen displayed a single, simple text message, to Michael Sterling from E. That you destroyed the protocol. Good. You chose the right priority. The Sunstone is not the only thing Vance is digging up. He is after a person. A target I left buried, protected by the Vane family. Check the Vane ledger. Search for the Guardian. He is the key to the Sleeper's true debt. I'll meet you in the east. Michael read the message. Lillian hadn't run, she had been watching, trusting Michael to make the right tactical choice. She had provided the final clue to the true, deeper secret buried in Montreux. Lena, Michael whispered, pointing at the screen. Search the Vane ledger again. I need to know who the Guardian is. Michael didn't wait for Victor's status report. He slammed his hand on Lena's keyboard. Lena, forget the Reaper. Lillian said, the Guardian. Search the Vane ledger again, cross-reference the Guardian with the Montreux excavation site and Julian's medical records. Lena, galvanized by the urgency and Lillian's direct warning, worked with manic speed. The encrypted vein ledger was notoriously dense, but the new cross-reference yielded an immediate, devastating result. "Michael, look," Lena whispered, pulling up a highly protected medical file stamped "Do Not Disclose." "Julian Vane's medical history is a lie. He didn't have a simple childhood illness. He has a rare, degenerative genetic condition. He needs constant, specialized care that only a handful of doctors in the world can provide." "What does this have to do with the Guardian?" Michael demanded. "The Guardian is the code name for Julian's mother, Eleanor Vane," Lena revealed, her voice shaking slightly. "The ledger states that when the syndicate captured Julian, Eleanor was not killed, as publicly reported. She was the one who hid the Sunstone, the artifact. She traded her freedom to the syndicate to become Julian's personal, highly skilled nurse. She's been imprisoned with him for the past decade, keeping him alive." The full, devastating truth crashed down on Michael. Lillian hadn't just been running to save her brother, she was trying to save her mother, too. Eleanor Vane, the Guardian, was the key to Julian's survival. The $50 million didn't just buy Julian's debt, it bought the syndicate's agreement to release his mother, the only person who knew how to operate the medical equipment necessary to keep Julian from dying. Elias Vance wasn't digging for a priceless artifact, he was digging up the Vane family's medical lifeline, a hidden, specialized supply cache needed for Julian's survival, which was buried next to the Sunstone. He was going to use it to extort Lillian until her death. Vance didn't release Julian, he released him to die slowly without his mother's care, Michael growled, rage hardening his gaze. And he's digging up the medical supplies and the Sunstone to ensure the Vane family is permanently neutralized. The final stand. The comms channel crackled. Victor's strained voice cut through. "Michael, we've secured the remaining operatives, but the Reaper is pinned down near the stairwell. She's injured, but she won't go down. She's demanding a trade, her freedom for the security of your wife. She's bluffing." Michael yelled. "Lillian is in Scotland. She wouldn't risk being caught." "No, Michael. The Reaper says Lillian contacted her hours ago. Lillian made a deal, she will surrender her location to the Reaper after the Reaper confirms Julian and the Guardian's freedom. The Reaper is here to hold us hostage until her terms are met." Victor was breathing heavily. Lillian's final, calculated sacrifice. She planned to be the last piece of collateral, securing her mother and brother's future by trading her own. "Lena, initiate an emergency shutdown on the NLDG. Give the Reaper a single, clean exit route to the service elevator. Victor, let her go." "This isn't the fight," Michael commanded. "But the Reaper will track us." Victor protested. "No. She'll head straight to the only prize left, Elias Vance in Montreux," Michael declared. "She needs to stop Vance from destroying the Sunstone and the Vane supplies, otherwise Lillian's deal is void. Vance is now her target." Michael looked at the map, his mind racing through the logistics. The Reaper was a loose cannon, but she would serve Michael's purpose. "Lena, book the fastest civilian jet to Montreux. We're going back. We have the flash drive and Julian. We are going to expose Vance's operation and retrieve Julian's mother." Epilogue: The reunion in the East. The final confrontation took place 30 hours later, not in the snow of the Alps, but in the sterile, high-tech security compound beneath Chalet Ethelred. Michael, Victor, and a small, private military team stormed the underground excavation site. They found Elias Vance and his men attempting to load two large, lead-lined crates, the Sunstone and the Vane medical supplies, into a maintenance tunnel. The chaos that followed was swift. The Reaper, having tracked Vance back to the chalet, launched her own brutal ambush. Michael used the ensuing firefight as a distraction, disabling the lighting and forcing Vance into a corner. "The game is over, Vance," Michael said, standing over the trembling facilitator. "I have the flash drive. I know you're trying to steal the Sunstone and the medical supplies. The moment you touch those crates, the erasure protocol goes live, and every syndicate asset is frozen. Vance, defeated, spat on the ground. She wins. The Lily always wins. Victor secured Vance and the two crates, while Michael raced into a hidden cell beneath the excavation, and there she was. Eleanor Vane, the Guardian. A thin, weary woman in a nurse's uniform, but with the same fierce green eyes as Lillian and Julian. Michael quickly explained everything, confirming Julian was safe and the supplies were recovered. His final task, finding Lillian. Michael returned to London days later. The dust settled. Elias Vance was in custody, handed over to a discreet international body with an anonymous tip about the syndicate's network. Eleanor Vane was flown to a secure location to begin Julian's complex treatment. Michael waited. He knew Lillian wouldn't return to the penthouse, not to the life built on a lie. Then, one morning, he received a simple text, at the dawn. He knew where to go. The dawn. The east side of London, where the sun first broke over the city. He found her standing on the shore of the Thames River, the first rays of morning light, the true dawn, striking her face. She was wearing simple clothes, looking like the woman he fell in love with, but with a new, quiet strength. Lillian, he whispered, using her true name for the first time. She turned, her eyes welling up. Michael. I destroyed your perfect world. I risked everything you owned. You built me a better one. Lillian, he corrected, walking toward her. The syndicate is crippled. Your brother and mother are safe. You are free. I have nothing left, she said simply. My entire life was collateral. Michael reached into his pocket and pulled out the flash drive, the drive that now held the key to the syndicate's destruction, but was too damaged to activate the dead man's switch. You left this to protect me. I saved your brother, and in return, you saved my soul. I'm no longer the billionaire obsessed with assets, Michael said, throwing the drive into the murky river. I'm the man who loves Lillian Vane. He took her hands. We have $500 million and a new, clean identity waiting. Your mother needs the best care, and your brother needs a safe life. We go to the east, Lillian. We go where the sun rises on a new beginning. Lillian smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that melted away the 7 years of deception. I can't be Emily Sterling, she said. Good, Michael replied, pulling her close. Because I don't want to be Michael Sterling anymore, either. And as the sun rose fully over the east of London, the millionaire and the fugitive walked away from the river, leaving behind the shattered pieces of their old lives, ready to face their new dawn together.